Hey everybody, welcome to another wonderful week of Cooking with Sun Valley. I have a really fun recipe for you guys today. It's going to be the perfect snack for that summer hot afternoon. We have our mango summer salsa cups. This is what they look like. They have a really cool combination and yummy combination of mango and red onion, bell peppers and cilantro and all these really yummy ingredients. This recipe does take a little bit longer than my past ones because we have a lot of cutting today, but it's a perfect tool and a perfect recipe for you to learn a lot more skills in the kitchen. So come on and join me over at the sink and we'll go ahead and get started. So the first step is we got to wash all of our beautiful fruits and vegetables here. I have our, our bell pepper, we have our tomatoes over here, and our lovely mango, which is going to be the center point of this amazing dish. And then we also have our cilantro right here. I kind of thrown them all in here, but you can wash them every way you need them. So let's go ahead and get them nice and clean. You want to take off any of these stickers because you don't want to eat that. So let's go ahead and get that off. All right, make sure there's nothing else there. Wash everything. Oop, that sticker. Let's make sure it's all nice and clean. There we go. All right, that should be good. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this aside. And you're going to take a paper towel and just go and lay it out. Make sure to get all that extra water out. And we're going to use a paper towel to dry it off, and then we can move on to our next step. So I've already gone ahead and quartered this red onion. You can see it's about, if you kind of look at it here, you can tell that it would be a whole onion. And to do that, I took off the bottom part, and then I just went ahead and cut it into quarters like so. So the thing about onions is that they love to make your eyes water. A few tricks I like to avoid that is, of course, cutting quicker, but we want to be safe rather than fast. So make sure you have an open window, or you can even have a piece of bread in your mouth to kind of help soak up any of the aroma that comes up. But if you cry a little bit, that's totally okay. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to start cutting down into it like so. As you can see, I'm keeping my fingers out of the way to make sure I don't cut them on accident. And I'm also not cutting all the way to where the stem is over here. So we're just gonna keep cutting down like that. There we go. And then once I get a little bit further, I'm just gonna go ahead and hold both sides. There we go. There we go. You wanna try to get even cuts, right? Remember, we're hoping to make them into smaller pieces. So once I have it cut down, the next way I'm gonna cut it is I'm gonna start cutting into it. This way I like to take it to the edge of my board and just go ahead and kind of press down on it and then start cutting in, holding both sides. There we go. And you only need to do this like once or twice. You don't need to do it too many times. And once you have it cut down like that, we're gonna take our final cut. And you see we'll start cutting it into smaller pieces here, right? Little chunks right there. You're gonna get little bits in here. It's a little bit harder with a butter knife, but that's okay. As long as you can just keep cutting it into smaller pieces, it should look perfect and ready to go. So once you have the whole onion cut up into these kind of smaller pieces, just go ahead and take all that and add it to our bowl over here. And then we'll go ahead and move on to our next step. So now that we have our onion cut up into these beautiful smaller pieces, I like to clear off my cutting board in between every fruit or vegetable just to get those juices off, and it'll make it easier to cut the next one. We're gonna go ahead and cut this really oddly shaped bell pepper. So you're probably wondering, how do we cut this? I'm gonna go ahead and show you how. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take off this bottom part right here. Just go ahead and saw into that right there. And we don't need that, so we're just gonna set that aside and toss that away. And then what we're going to do is, where you see these little ridges right here, we're going to just kind of cut into one. So we'll cut down this side, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut down this side as well. And now we have essentially two halves. So the thing about bell peppers, they have a big old seed in the middle with all these kind of smaller seeds attached to it. We don't want any of that in our salsa. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this kind of part right here, and I'm going to start going around like that. Don't worry about getting the top part. And voila, we have a half of ours right here. And just because we're only going to be using about a third of the bell pepper, I'm just going to set the rest aside, and you can save that for later. And then the next step we're going to do is I'm going to just kind of cut off a piece of this. And we're going to save that for later as well. And then what we have is our beautiful red bell pepper slice. So as you can see, we still have some attached, right? We have all that kind of white veiny part. We want to get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it flat, take my knife, and just kind of slowly bring it across like so, making sure not to cut myself. And now that we have this thing off, our bell pepper is ready to go. Make sure there aren't any seeds available, there's no stickers, anything on it. It's looking perfect. So now I'm going to start taking slices and going down like that. It's easier to go from the inside out just because with the skin on the outside, it can be hard to kind of chop through. And we're going to start doing it into small little slices like so. You can kind of drag your knife across. I think it's easier that way to kind of cut through it. And we're going to go through the entire bell pepper, but once you have a good amount of these slices, go ahead and line them up again, and we're going to do the same thing going this way. And as you can see, it's turning into small little bite-sized pieces, just like our onion. Go ahead and finish all this here. And once you have them in these kind of smaller pieces, just go ahead and toss them in here with the rest of our onion. And we are done with our bell pepper. So as I said, the next part is going to be cutting the tomatoes. I go ahead and went and got a plastic fork here just to make it a little bit easier. I think with these butter knives, it can be a little bit too strong. So with these, I like to be a little bit more delicate. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the little top stem part, and to do that we're just going to go ahead and cut that off, go and saw through that, and we'll have a nice little flat edge, and we're going to set it up like that. And once we have it set up like that, we're going to go ahead and just kind of start creating little slices. So I'm sawing into it, one, and you want to do the slices about the same size that you've been doing the other vegetables. I like to do maybe about 3 slices into it. And once you have those 3 slices, you'll have these little flat pieces right here. And then what you can do is just go ahead and start cutting down like so. Kind of the same thing we did with our bell pepper. And what you really want to do is, honestly, you can get creative here, but you want to just cut them up into those bite-sized pieces that we've had before. So that's a good size right there. And just go ahead and cut up each one. And let's cut up this one as well. It's alright if it gets a little messy, or if they get a little kind of, they don't look perfect. It's salsa, and nothing needs to be perfect. It's going to taste delicious no matter what. So now we have these into little bite-sized pieces. I'm going to take my metal knife and just go ahead and move them up, and we're going to add them to the rest of our salsa. So I like to do about 5 or 6 tomatoes. It all depends on what you like, depending on how big the tomatoes are as well. If you have one big tomato, obviously you don't want to use 5 or 6 of those. But really, yeah, it's up to taste. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up the rest of these, and then we'll move on to our next fruit. All right, now we're going to get to the main event, which is cutting our mango. I know these can be very intimidating, and most of you might not have ever cut one of these before, but hopefully I can show you guys a nice and easy way to kind of get through it. So as you can see, we have kind of an oblong shape here. We have our stem at our top, which I like to call the head, and then we have our bottom right here, our little tail end, okay? So these things come with a big old seed right in the middle, and as you can see, they're generally always going to be right in the center of where this stem is, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to start cutting down into it, and you'll kind of start to feel and find where it's available. So you can keep cutting down like that, and then what we're cutting here is 2 sides. So we have our cheek here, right? This is this half, and we want to cut the other side as well. I haven't found our seed yet, so I think it's farther on this side. So I'm going to cut a little farther out. There we go. We have our 2 cheeks over here. And then what we're going to have is our center part. So, oh, there it is. We're going to cut around it, like so. And I'm going to cut this other side as well. See, you can feel the seed kind of deep in there. And it's alright to get messy here. A good mango is going to be nice and juicy. So we're going to set this aside. I'm going to kind of keep cutting off the sides here until we find our seed. Be careful not to cut yourself. There we go. So as you can see here, we have that little white part. That's our seed. So it's kind of hard to tell how big it is just from here, but we'll kind of keep cutting. All the slices off, perfect. So I think this is a pretty good amount of mango right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside. And really for this, you can keep it, you can cut it up into smaller pieces later, but we don't really need any more of that. So I'm gonna kind of set these kind of odd shapes over here aside, and I'm gonna go and take our cheek. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of cut into it, being careful not to cut through the skin. And I'm gonna cut it into small slices like so. And then once I have those, kind of almost looks like a bear just went and carved into it. We're gonna cut down the other way. And as I said, there's no such thing as perfection here. Really just trying to get all these little pieces off. So now that I have it all kind of cut into this little tic-tac-toe style, what I'm gonna do, this is the fun part, I'm gonna flip it inside out. And look how beautiful that looks. Look at all those beautiful pieces right there. So now that I have that, I'm just gonna kind of take them all off, being careful not to cut my hand. And flip it back inside out, and they should just kind of fall off as you cut into it. There we go. Perfect. So I got a good amount there. Let's kind of keep cutting into it. You want to get as much of that lovely juicy mango as you can. And then once you have it down into these little slices, start cutting into it a little bit more. And you want to try to get it into smaller sized pieces, the same sizes as your bell pepper. Here we go. All right, look at these. We got these beautiful little mango squares. And they're sweet, they're fruity, they're delicious, and we're gonna take those and add those to our salsa. And so once you've done that, you can do that same thing with the other cheek. What these weird pieces, these little bizarre little slices, what you wanna do is make sure you don't get any of the skin. Just go ahead and cut off the mango part. And you can cut those into little slices like so. And then you're just gonna do the same thing. You're gonna cut down them and cut them into little square pieces. You want to think about something that's easy to fit in a cup or in a little spoon, and you want to get them in small enough pieces where you can have a little bit of everything. So that's how you cut your mango. It is a very messy and juicy experience, so make sure that you wash your hands again afterwards and go ahead and clean off your cutting board as well. I'm going to go ahead and finish up cutting all this, and then we'll move on to our final two pieces. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and cut our mango, I promise that's gonna be the hardest part of the entire day. And I know you've been doing a lot of cutting, but bear with me, it'll all be worth it when you get to taste this yummy treat. So now we're to move to our last two pieces here. We have our cilantro and our lime. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take off little pieces of the cilantro. So we have it here, you have your stem, and then you have your leaves. So what you wanna do is just go ahead and start pulling off all these leaves of each one of the stems. And you're gonna go through as much, if you like the cilantro and you tasted it and it tastes fine to you, I like to add a lot to it because I love cilantro, but this is all about personal taste. You can add more, you can add less, really completely up to you. You also don't have to add any if you don't like the taste. So what we're gonna do is just kind of keep pulling these off, get rid of the stems, we're not gonna be using that. All you want is these beautiful fresh leaves here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a few for now, but I'm gonna come back later and do the rest of it. But once we have a nice little pile here, what you wanna do is you wanna kind of bunch it all together. So go ahead and take it in a little bunch, and then you wanna try to roll it up. So as you can see, I kind of have a nice bunch here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my knife while still holding it and just start to kind of saw into it. The goal here is to cut, not mash, right? You wanna cut it into nice little pieces here. So what we're gonna do is then once I have that again, I'm gonna do it again, kind of roll it all up together, and then keep cutting through. And you're gonna get this beautiful, lovely smell of those wonderful fresh herbs. So as you can see, we're cutting into much smaller pieces here. And once you kind of have it into these kind of smaller bite-sized pieces, you can go ahead and just add that to our beautiful salsa. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish cutting up the rest of the cilantro, and then we'll move to our lime in our last part, which is gonna be our seasonings. Now that we have our cilantro nice and cut up and added to the rest of our beautiful salsa, we're gonna go ahead and cut up this lime in half, just like so. You wanna saw through it, making sure not to cut your fingers. If you're having a hard time, just kind of stab into it a little bit and really cut through. There we go. So this also depends on how much you like, but I like a lot of lime juice with my salsa, so I'm gonna actually use both halves, but you want about 1 tablespoon, which is about half a lime. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that, we're gonna just kind of squeeze it into our salsa here. And a little trick to make sure you get all that juice, you can take your knife and just kind of put it in there, holding one side and move it back and forth like so, and that'll get the rest of the juices out. So now that you have your lime juice in there, I'm gonna set this one aside, I'll add that later. We're gonna take our salt and pepper packets. So I got about 2 per each. I would say really it's about maybe a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of salt and maybe about 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. But we're gonna go ahead and open these up. We're gonna add our seasoning as well. It's good to add salt because salt helps bring the taste out of the other fruits and vegetables. And let me go ahead and add this other packet right here. There we go. And then lastly, I'm gonna add my pepper packets. Don't worry, the pepper will not make it too spicy. It gets kind of evened out with everything else, especially with the lime juice. Let's go ahead and add that in, both packets. And there we go. So now we have our beautiful salsa. And what you need to do now is take that spoon and just start mixing it all together. If you need to do it in a bigger bowl, that's fine as well. But here we go. Just kind of mix all that salt and juice and lime and mango and onion all together until it's looking nice and thoroughly mixed. That looks about good. And voila, we have our summer mango salsa. And for the last step, we're gonna do is we're gonna go and add it to our really cool little tortilla cups over here. Hey, I wanna congratulate you guys on an incredible job today. Look at this amazing salsa that we've created together and all these beautiful cut up pieces. I know it was a lot of cutting, but trust me, it's all gonna be worth it after you taste it from this final step. So here I have a few of my little tortilla cups cut out. I like to do the summer cups just because they're a lot fun to eat. You can eat them in one bite, you can eat them as little snacks. But of course, with any salsa, you can just take your chips and go ahead and dip it right into it. But for this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of get a nice little mix here now that it's all mixed up. Mix it one more time just to make sure it's all perfectly mixed. And I'm gonna take about half a tablespoon and put it right into my cup like so. There we go. So now we have 1 mango cup. We're gonna keep going and adding it to all of our little cups here. 2. There we go. And you can add more or less. Really, it all depends on how much you like. I like a lot of this salsa. There we go. Look at this beautiful, beautiful salsa. You have the green from the cilantro, you have the purple from the red onion, you got that beautiful red from the tomato and bell pepper, and look at that yellow mango as well. So now I have my little cups and we are ready for the best part, the taste test. All right, guys, great job today. I know it was a lot of cutting, but you guys did an amazing job. So now we get to do the wonderful part of tasting these beautiful, beautiful summer salsa cups that we created. So let me go and I'll pick this one right here. Oh my God. You have that crunchiness from the chip. You have that sweetness from the mango. It's nice and fresh from all these beautiful fresh ingredients. The cilantro and lime juice help to kind of balance out that sweetness. And then that salt and pepper at the end kind of give it that perfect zing. What an incredible cup. This will be perfect on any hot day. The great thing about this recipe is you can just go ahead and store it in an airtight jar and it should be good for up to 5 days. And then of course, as I said, you don't have to take the time and put it in these cups. You can also just take the chips and eat it directly. Thanks again, guys, for another wonderful week cooking with Sun Valley. Go ahead and like and subscribe and let me know of any other recipes you'd like to see in the future. Thanks, guys.